Welcome to Conscious Action for Truth, the CAT in Cat Chats, where we will expose and talk about the issues facing New Mexico in these challenging times. We will talk about the infection apocalypse, the injection apocalypse, and the election apocalypse. This is the time when all that has been hidden and every lie will be exposed. So hold on to your hats and listen to the courageous voices of truth in New Mexico. I am your host, Mahara. I'm so happy to welcome again to Cat Chats, Kathleen Dudley, a great fighter for truth and justice, and a real leader here in New Mexico on the issue of bonds, security bonds for our elected and appointed officials. So welcome to Cat Chats, Kathleen. Good to see you again.
Great to see you again, Mahara. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And again, I just want to thank you for making this a possibility. Thank you.
You are so welcome. And I love what you're doing. I jumped into, as you know, and so give us an update, a little update on the bond issue in New Mexico, what's going on, and maybe tell our audience, just give a little recap on what an IPRA is, where we send them, and the power of it all. So take it away.
Okay, very good. Well, it's been very interesting, and it's rather a new topic for me. I've been aware of Bonds for the Win in Arizona now for perhaps a month. And then I found out about a group called New Mexicans Against Tyranny. And I highly urge everyone to join that and become more aware and involve themselves in this dialogue. It's been very helpful and informative. So what I came to understand through being exposed to a website by unmasked.com was a very fine memorandum on surety bonds. And what is a surety bond? Maybe I should just review that.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
A surety bond is a written agreement providing for monetary compensation to be paid by the surety company should there be a failure by the person bonded to perform specified acts within a stated period. Now, surety is a specialized line of insurance where one party agrees to be responsible for the debt or obligation of another party. And now in New Mexico, the bond protects the obligee from loss. But the person who takes the surety bond out must put up a certain amount of money, which is in essence a good faith expression to the citizens of New Mexico. And
so just a good faith to uphold the Constitution, their oath. Is that right?
No, it's really, my understanding, a good faith when they put their money out for a surety bond, that they're telling the citizens of New Mexico that they, in all honor and with all integrity, will uphold their oath that they are pledging to the Constitution to hold their office with integrity and to uphold, yes, the mission statement of the state of New Mexico and the national Constitution.
You said it better than I did.
No, you said it well, but thank you for that prompt, because I really was negligent in specifying that. So what's really amazing, Mahara, is every single state official, whether appointed or elected, whether a superintendent or a judge or the attorney general or the governor or the Secretary of State, and the list goes on and on, all state officials must take the pledge to uphold the Constitution of the state of New Mexico and the national Constitution. And within 30 days of holding office, they must file their surety bond with the Secretary of State. Now, that is demanded by the New Mexico Constitution. And there has never been a referendum that has gone out to the people to change that. There was a state legislative act, which I believe was in the late 1980s, called the Surety Bond Act. And without a referendum, without a 2/3 majority vote by the people to change the Constitution, they illegally, fraudulently changed the requirements for all state officials, elected or appointed. Now, what that means is that these officials no longer have to put up money. That money is put up by the taxpayers of New Mexico. All of us, we have paid for them. No longer is there a goodwill statement or a requirement. No longer do they have any skin in the game, so to speak. So what happens with that, and the reason that this is an important issue, is that the Secretary of State was mandated by the Constitution of New Mexico, by law, to hold these surety bonds, and that whenever any citizen wanted to pull a surety bond on any official because they were defaulting in their oath to uphold their position, then that citizen could go to the Secretary of State and through an IPRA request receive that copy and then claim on that bond. Now,
what is an IPRA request?
An IPRA it's an acronym for the Information Inspection of Public Records Act. I'm sorry, my mind went blank. So it allows us, it's a legal process, and you can send an IPRA to any state agency and request public records. So in this case, we send an IPRA request to the Secretary of State because they're mandated to hold the bond. And it's very simple language, and anyone who wants to do that, please contact me. I can give them the wording, the language. You can get it from Mahara as well. And there are many people on the Telegram site, New Mexicans Against Tyranny, as well, who have that language. But when you send that, then the Secretary of State must legally supply it. But here is a response that I get continuously for every single official, from the governor to the Attorney General, to the Secretary of State herself, to superintendents, to sheriffs, to magistrates and judges. This is the same response that I have gotten. Quote, "After a diligent search, we have determined we are not in custody of any records responsive to your request." Well, holy cow. They are in absolute violation of the New Mexico Constitution. They therefore are holding their positions in fraud. They have perjured their oath. They are accountable to us, to we the people. Now it is for up to we the people to figure out how to take them out of office. But it is they then go on to say that the coverage is held by the General Services Department. And they also go on to say that state employees and officers are not required, or in most cases, not even allowed to obtain individual surety bonds.
Not even allowed to?
That's quote unquote, not even allowed to. So what they have essentially done as government has become corporatized, because we know that all of these courts, all of these government agencies are listed on Dun & Bradstreet, and it explains that in the court system alone, there are almost 1,500 companies that are doing business for profit. They're not any longer doing business for justice, business according to the Constitution. They're all acting fraudulently. Now, this is humongous. This is huge to call these agencies out, to call these states out, to call these courts out, and it's up to us to do that. It's my impression, my experience, based upon what I read in the Constitution, that anyone that they direct us to, the Secretary of State directs us to, like the General Services Department, is just a way to get us sidetracked. Because by law, they must hold the surety bonds. And by not holding the surety bonds, it means that none of these state officials are insured. So they now are under an umbrella bond that the state legislature put into an unlawful move.
Statute, right?
Yes, it was done through statute.
Yes.
Correct. But we all know that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and any statute that is in conflict with the Constitution is null and void.
Yes.
So we must understand the basics of this, and we weren't taught this. We were taught statutes. And so when people listen to this legalese by the governments today, they're not listening to what is our empowered rights. They're listening to man-made statutes, which are attempting to steal from us all of our rights.
And legalese, which is the language involving Latin often, that only the elites learned, is designed, as far as I can see, to cut people out of the system, so that people have no clue what their rights and their powers are. They have to go hire a lawyer who can speak for them in this gobbledygook, and they do their little dance. And if you're lucky, you might get some kind of justice, or more often than not these days, you're not getting any.
Well, and you bring up a really important point. It used to be, now you were born and raised in England, and I was born and raised in Canada. And it was in the early 70s when a foreign language did not any longer have to be learned on the university level. Now, I studied a foreign language. I studied French in junior high and high school, but I didn't have to study it in college, and I was really relieved. But it used to be mandatory, and there were options of Latin and French and Spanish and German, but that's how we became knowledgeable. That's how we understood the language, the law. And in 1999, a very, very important book was written about this very issue of the dumbing down of America. And it was written by Charlotte Iserbyt, and she just died. And she wrote a book called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. And we're seeing that because for us to not understand the Constitution, for us to not know the Bill of Rights within the Constitution, for us to not truly understand law it's a relatively recent loss for numerous generations, but certainly my generation and forward. And so when we do not understand what's before us, then we tend to step aside, right? And not become involved. And that's exactly intended.
Yes. So The Constitution is such an important issue right now. There's a little book, everyone. If you haven't seen this little book, this is the Constitution of the United States with the Bill of Rights in it, which are the amendments. And they are the most important thing every single one of us, I believe, needs to read and understand, because it is the language that gives us, it enshrines, I can't say it doesn't give us, because our rights are God-given, and we must remember that always. We are born with those rights. What the Constitution does is enshrine and ensure those rights as long as we claim them. But we have to claim them. We have to be constantly vigilant. What say you, Kathleen?
Well, I agree with everything that you're saying there. You know, we're born sovereign, and it is between ourselves and our Creator. And no man, no government has the right to rule over us. So when this legal system was put into place by essentially the bar attorneys some 222 years ago, we have slowly lost our ability to even comprehend that we have rights. But the important thing that we must know is that we, the people, govern, and we are over top of the so-called government. We pay them. They are our servants. It's very important for us to remember that and to respectfully treat them as such, and to not, because they wear a black robe in a court or a police officer wears a police suit, to not give them authority over us, because no one has authority over us. That is a master-slave system. And it is almost impossible to comprehend, because we have been so tricked into becoming acquiescent, to acquiesce to the authority figure. But we must step into our sovereignty, because we are born sovereign, and no one gives us our rights. No one gives us our freedom, but we are born that way. So we must embody them and assert them.
Absolutely. And they always do it slowly. I call it, the totalitarian tiptoe. I call it the communist creep. Yeah. They do it very, very slowly, and then suddenly, boom, it comes out. And we just witnessed that up in Ottawa with the truckers. What they did is unconscionable. This is where we are all headed if we don't claim our sovereignty and our rights. Thank God we do have our Constitution in America. But it's just a piece of paper unless we do exactly what you said, Kathleen, and remember and claim our sovereignty. And one of the ways we're doing it is through the bonds, the issue of the bonds. That's one of the ways that we can actually take action now in New Mexico. From what I'm seeing at the moment, most of it is towards the school boards, parents sending in IPRA requests regarding the school boards. But hey, it can go anywhere. What about the mayor of Santa Fe? What about the governor?
Exactly. I mean, and the thing is, even with the school boards, those IPRA requests need to go to the Secretary of State. They need to go to the Secretary of State, and within 3 days, they respond. And I can guarantee that they're going to receive a letter with the same wording that I've received. And what does that do? It tells us that those superintendents, those school board elected school board members are not insured with their individual surety bond that they took an oath to state that they would, in 30 days, according to the Constitution, would file with the Secretary of State. So the importance of all that is, if it was filed with the Secretary of State, for example, I could pull that surety bond on Michael Aragon, who is acting judge, now recused from one of the two cases in which I'm involved. But I could pull it and I could claim on that. Now, he would have put money up for that surety bond, and that would be a lot of financial pressure against that judge. But now that the surety bonds are all under one umbrella bond, and they're held by the risk management, we don't have any power. If we claim on that surety bond, that money just goes to the government of New Mexico.
And so we end up paying.
We end up paying. And we don't have any leverage. So if everyone was to write an IPRA request to the Secretary of State, to their IPRA, it's ipra.sos at newmexico.gov, I believe it is. And if they all sent their IPRAs in and put that pressure on the Secretary of State to let them know what we know, and then take that letter of rejection that I received from the Secretary of State with the wording, I don't know if you can see that, but and then with that wording, then send it to each one of those board members and the superintendents and say, you're acting fraudulently. You have no authority, not only to not mandate anything, but you don't even have the authority to hold office. If everyone in New Mexico did that, can you imagine the kind of impact that this would have? I believe we really are on the move to getting these frauds out of office.
Well, it seems that it's been working pretty well in Arizona, who, they have spearheaded this.
Yes.
And they have the site Bonds for the Win, which is very useful. They've only been having to do things really quick. So their information on New Mexico, for example, is not totally accurate, but, I think they're doing what they can. But it seems like it's been pretty successful in the school boards there, right? So for some reason, this is a little scary to them.
Well, when your bond is threatened, and again, this is all about becoming aware of what a bond means and the power that we have as citizens to pull a bond, even if they are not bonded according to the Constitution. People are getting nervous, and I think we have a number of layers here. We're truly en masse exposing the fraud by the state legislature of New Mexico by passing the Surety Bond Act, and that was all done fraudulently. We're exposing them. We're exposing the fraud by the Secretary of State, and every time Patrick Rostock sends another one of these letters to me, it's exposing the fraud that he's upholding. He's in violation of the Constitution. He's perjuring his oath. I mean, we can go after these folks, and I think it takes a number of us, not just a couple. And so each time another person sends in another IPRA, and then to follow up on it, what I think is very important is to send an affidavit, which I have done to both Patrick and Maggie, the Secretary of State, exposing this, requesting a rebuttal, but they can't rebut it because everything that I put in this affidavit is truth and law and fact. And that holds up in a court. Can you imagine if we took all of these fraudulent people who've all perjured their oath to a court of law with affidavits that they can't rebut? Can you imagine the hoopla the celebrations that we would have of exposing these frauds, it'd be huge.
Absolutely. And that is obviously the next step, is to, once you get a response to your request to the Secretary of State, to then write your affidavit. And again, if you want some help in doing that, get onto the Telegram site, New Mexicans Against Tyranny, or send an email to Kathleen. The information will be under this video. One last thing, Kathleen, when we were talking, you mentioned the importance of language. Do you want to just say a little something about that?
Yes. So this legal system that has come into place is all about contract law. It's called maritime law. And it's always about presenting us an offer to participate in their legal scheme. And what's important is that they have what's called a jurisdiction, a contract jurisdiction, a maritime law jurisdiction. And that means that you become essentially an employee of them. And that's when all their statutes and all their policies and presumptions and everything then applies. But as sovereign people, we are born without any contract on us. We do not participate in that system. So I claim my jurisdiction based upon my constitutionally secured rights. And all of this is all language. It's all meant as trickery. It's like a Talmudic inversion. So we must recognize that state statutes are part of this legal structure of law that has to do with presenting contracts. Now, you cannot even legally have a contract between two people if they both don't lawfully understand the contract, but they constantly are presenting contracts. Like a speeding ticket is a contract, and they put you into their contract maritime jurisdiction. So it's very important to understand that they don't apply to us as sovereign people. And if we want to claim our birthrights, the Bill of Rights, the amendments, our freedom of speech, our freedom to not be encroached upon by someone aggressively or by anyone who wants to take something from us. And that's what a police officer does. They want to take something from us. They want to take money from us. They want to impose a crime upon us. And we have not committed a crime. By speeding, that is not a crime. And they can't prove that there's a crime because no one was harmed. So we must understand, we must comprehend the language, the legalese, and that is a study in and of itself. But it's important, I think, for everyone to study thoroughly what jurisdiction means so that they can hold to their sovereignty, hold to their freedom, because truly, I don't want to be contracted or be an employee of Burger King, which is equal to that of the state of New Mexico government, because they're a very punitive entity. They're a corporation doing business for profit. It has nothing to do with justice. And that is not at all where I stand or what I embody.
Is that why you put sui juris on your documents for affidavits, for example? You don't put pro se, you use sui juris.
That's correct, because in the legal world of contract maritime law, pro se means that you are a part of their legal system. And therefore, they can adjudicate against you. They can determine, they can put any fine, they can use any statute against you because you're part of that jurisdiction. Sui juris is representing myself as a completely separate, living and breathing woman or man. And no one has jurisdiction over me. So sui juris is an extremely important title. But the other thing is, if everyone gets into the habit of writing, of also adding a line under their signature, and I always forget it, even at the worst of times, which is in the middle of an interview, and I'm going to have to. So it's all rights reserved without prejudice. And it's the strangest thing. My mind just wants to not hold on to that. But that means that when anyone in the legal system forces us to sign a document, to contract with them, if we put all rights reserved or under duress, then it nullifies our signature. It holds us in our constitutionally secured jurisdiction. Very important. And so the language that we do not know, or that we're learning, or that we're exercising, can mean the difference between winning a court case, holding on to your rights without them being stolen. It can be the difference between a heavy fine or any kind of penalties. So it's yes, the language is very critical.
Language is always important. There's a saying, I think it's actually from the Bible, life and death is in the power of the tongue. And that spans many situations, many possibilities. But it's true in this situation as well. Yes. So would you recommend that people look at Jack and Margie Flynn's website?
You bet.
Margie.
Yes, I can't recommend it highly enough. And they have many videos, and they are probably two of the most knowledgeable folks having to do with how to assert our rights, the Bill of Rights, and understand the power of our secured rights in the Constitution. So yes, and if you you have their website, and I highly
recommend. It'll be under this video, so
very good.
It's important with these cat chats to look under the videos, because there's a lot of information under there too that you can further research and get on board this amazing train we're on.
Well, and again, I'm exhausted from the many months of this, especially in the courts, and holding up under this barrage of statutory assault. But the interesting and most important thing that I am learning and learned, and I want to share, is that those who stay in the ring the longest win. So please join me and stay in this ring. Let's fight this to the end, because this is all about our freedom. And if we don't stand up, then who is going to secure the freedom for our children and their children?
And we'll finish with that. So well said, Kathleen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahara.